Richard from Oregon asks the following question, or questions. Is there anything personal or non-automatic about this body? I don't know if it can be trained. Do you think it can? The body and the mind are instruments. They are wired and they have been trained since early childhood to respond to various situations. They have been trained to drive a car. They have been trained to respond to an infection. The body has been trained to walk, to avoid falling, to avoid injuries, etc. All of that is very useful. And the fact that it is mechanical due to the training gives us a lot of freedom. We don't have to think about those menial tasks. The body takes care of them on automatic pilot, so to speak. There is one problem, though, is that due to ignorance, which is the belief that we, consciousness, are dependent upon this body, that we are threatened, that we are mortal. Due to this belief, our body has been constantly in a condition of high alert. That is very tiring for the body, and that doesn't leave us much freedom to do anything else. We have to find out what the reasons for this state of alert are. And we discover that there is none, because they are all based upon, this state of alert is all based upon the belief that consciousness is threatened. And what could possibly threaten consciousness? Everything appears in consciousness. Everything happens in consciousness, but nothing ever happens to consciousness. Consciousness is safe. So is there anything personal or non-automatic about this body? Going back to this question, we have seen that there is a lot that is automatic about this body. But on the other hand, this body is an instrument which is the slave of the mind. Now, if we look at the mechanisms of the mind, the thought processes, we'll discover that there is no personal entity who is in control of those thought processes. And we discover that there is a lot of thinking that revolves around this belief that we are a separate entity, a separate person. And this thinking triggers actions in the body. Now, this agitation of the mind is not necessary. It is based upon a fictitious entity, a fictitiously separate entity. There is no such a separate entity. Once we discover this agitation of the mind ceases. Now there is a place from which the mind takes its orders. There is a place from which intuition comes, love comes, beauty comes, intelligence comes. And when the mind is not obscured or made dull or made non-receptive due to this agitation, there is clarity. And then we know that there is something else. We are not just an animal. We are the presence. We are the master. We are not the instrument. We are the presence. We are the consciousness. Now, that answers your first question. Is there anything personal or non-automatic about this body? There is something very personal, very private, very intimate. But this is not personal in the sense of being limited. It is personal in the sense of being me, of being the self that we are. But this self, we happen to share it with all beings. And this reality of ours is also the reality of all things, the reality of the cosmos. Now you ask, second question, do you think that the body can be trained? Yes. But more interesting than being trained, because all the training that was necessary, or most of it, has been already done. All the useful stuff, driving a car, knowing how to speak, knowing how to write, etc., knowing how to walk, how to run, all of that is behind us. We have acquired those skills. But just as the body can be trained, it can be untrained. And that's the interesting fact. The body has been trained in part to do useful things, the ones I just mentioned, but in part to do useless things as a slave of ignorance, as a slave of fear and desire. The body has been trained, and these mechanisms are still there. But just as the body has been trained, it can be untrained. The way to do it is to become aware of these mechanisms. I suggest the following exercise. You sense your body, the experience of your body. It is made of bodily sensations. And you surrender these bodily sensations to the space of consciousness in which they appear. And you keep doing that. You keep surrendering. Keep surrendering your body to the presence in which it appears, until this surrendering, or this surrender, has become automatic and almost unconscious, until you find yourself constantly surrendered. That's the untraining of the body. Thank you for your question.